So we're gonna put a Canon RP video together because we had a comment on the original RP video that came out not too long ago. Hopefully that's not too loud. We'll just do a third take. Anyway, had a comment from ZJTK, crazy name. Well, that plane is loud. Let's see if we can get that on. Oh shoot, that's close. Let's see if we can get that right. Maybe we'll put that in the video. That airplane was loud. Actually, let's just do third take. All right, so we're actually gonna do another video with the Canon RP. We're gonna do kind of a behind the scenes, I guess you could call it that, on how I filmed the original RP video that I released a couple months ago. In the YouTube comments, it was, I'm just gonna call him ZJTK. He had a great comment, which I actually received several similar comments through direct messages on, whether it was Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even email, that were pretty similar. So I was like, well, probably should put a video together. What we'll do is we'll get the settings set up on this Canon RP, and then once we get all our footage, we'll jump into Adobe Premiere Pro, show you how I kind of turn all the footage into slow motion, how we put it together. Anyway, let's recap here. If you haven't seen the original RP video, we want to record in 1080p on this bad boy because we want to utilize that full frame sensor. 4K has, I believe it's a 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 crop, somewhere in there. Yeah, 1080p, utilize full frame sensor. We want to record in 60 frames per second because we want to record in 60 frames per second so we can slow that footage down. It'll actually help smooth that footage out too, which is another reason why we have to record in 1080p, because in 4K we only have access to 24 frames per second. We'll actually upscale that 1080p footage to 4K. Anyway, let's jump into these settings really quickly. Just a couple settings. We don't have to change much, but I will show you some additional settings so that way you have access to it. And one other cool little thing that we're going to use is the back button autofocus. You see it? Back button autofocus. Kind of get familiar with that because we will be taking advantage of that too. Anyway, let's jump into these settings. Quickly want to add too, we're kind of shooting here in the middle of daylight here. It's a little past noon. I probably want to say it's about 1:30. We don't really have the ideal lighting situation, but it works because we got an ND filter on our Canon RP, so we'll still be able to shoot at that f4 on the 24-105 lens, so that'll work. In my environment, we do have some trees here that kind of give off a shadow, so we'll actually be taking advantage of those shadows. If you're more of in a urban environment, take advantage of those tall buildings that you can use, yeah. But we got some shadows here, we got some trees that we can take advantage of. Anyway, camera settings. All right, first thing we want to do is we want to switch over to manual mode. We don't want to be in the camera icon mode. We don't want to be in that. We want to be in manual because that's actually going to give us access to that spot autofocus. So that's the first setting required. Make sure we're in manual. Moving on to the second setting. Okay, I think we can see that. All right, this won't be too bad. Just a couple settings here. We're going to jump into the menu. Press that menu button on the camera, and then we're going to be on the camera icon, page 7. Autofocus operation, set that servo, autofocus method, spot autofocus. And if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video. And I'll also put like some photos together, put it in a PDF, and you guys can download. Continuous autofocus, we'll enable that. Let's see, go back in the menu here. If you guys haven't already set it up, page 9, movie record size, 60 frames per second. Movie digital image stabilization, that's kind of your call. I'm just gonna leave it to disable and rely on the image stabilization on the lens. And we'll use warp stabilizer if we need to in post. Let's see here. Movie servo autofocus, enable. All right, that's really it for the camera icon settings. We're gonna move over to the wrench icon on page 2. Power saving, we will be using the display a lot. Turn that on to 30 minutes. If you do use your viewfinder to take your shots, probably like disable that if you want. It's kind of an optional setting really. Display brightness, if you're shooting in daylight like me right now in the middle of noon-ish, you're probably going to want to be able to, you'll probably jack that brightness level all the way up. Hopefully you'll have a couple extra batteries because that will eat through your batteries, especially with the power display setting set to like 30 minutes. Hopefully you got a couple batteries. Okay, page 4, wrench icon. Let's jump into the shooting info display. Display grid I'm gonna set that to 3. That's gonna help line up the shots. And then histogram, so we can see what's going on with our, you know, these light levels, whatever you want to call it. I just have it set to brightness. RGB, that's just gonna be like colors, just gives you your RGB levels. I'm gonna use brightness. And then display size, I'm actually gonna set that to small. Let's see what else we got. And then this probably isn't a big deal, but just in case you bought your camera off eBay, you know, from someone that lives in the United States, and you're wanting to set that to meters, this is where you would do that. That way you can actually see everything's in meters for you. This is not required. This is kind of, I'm just gonna show this to you. I really don't mess around with these settings at all. Recording 60 frames per second, slowing that footage down, we're gonna get some pretty nice focus pulls anyway with the slow motion, but just in case, let's jump over to focus. What is it? Kind of like the camera, the metering mode, whatever you want to call it. Page 1, there's only one page. Jump down to autofocus. You got several different settings here you can play around with. You got tracking sensitivity, acceleration, deceleration tracking, autofocus point switching. But really, the settings that you'll probably mostly play around with is the page 1, tracking sensitivity, and acceleration, deceleration tracking. All right, cool. I think, is that all the boring shit? I mean, boring stuff that we covered? Oh, probably should cover this anyway, too. So, let's see here. So, until you get familiar with, I don't know, your camera settings, I'm assuming that you kind of just got the camera, you're getting into videography. I would probably just recommend starting off with auto white balance. I don't know if you can really see that. Yeah. And then for the picture style, standard's fine. And then for the ISO, I'd set that to auto too. There is a button up here. Press that. And then let's just jump into ISO auto. Since we're recording at 60 frames per second, we're gonna set our shutter speed to 125. And then I actually have a new ND filter here. It's the Polar Pro. I like it because you can't really go past 5. 2, it has those hard stops in there. Can't really go past them. So it's kind of nice to quickly adjust it. You can't overshoot. Where that Tiffin ND filter that I was using on the original video, it would spin all the way around. It was just a pain. But anyway, let's actually go get some footage. Show you kind of how we got those shots. I guess I'm gonna duck down here. Okay, so we got all our settings set up here. We're obviously in the spot autofocus, 60 frames per second. You should really just have to worry about shooting because we set up all of our settings. ISO set to auto white balance was set. So now we just shoot. Make sure your image stabilization on the lens is turned on. Autofocus is turned on. Our first little setup here, we got a little trail that's kind of running through here, like right through here. And we got a nice sunlight. As far as holding the camera, I don't know if you can see it here. I kind of just keep the palm of my hand underneath here, and then I hardly like grip it. I just kind of let it sit here. And then while I'm doing that, I record, kind of like line up my shot, press record. I'll probably like focus on that tree and then hold the autofocus back button down, and then kind of like lean in. And then right before I get to the area that I want to focus on, I let off that autofocus button, on the back button autofocus. But we're gonna do this first shot. 24 millimeters. We're gonna get our established shot wide open, and then we're gonna zoom in. But let's go. I'm getting down low here so we can get some of these foreground elements in here. All right, here we go. Cool. And then we'll do another one. And since this footage will be slowed down, you don't really need to worry about being slow. You can just kind of go normal speed because that footage is going to be slowed down. Let's get a third one. I guess we'll focus on some nice tree stumps there. Let's back up a little bit here. Maybe focus on a plant here. I can get it here. Point at the ground, I guess. There's a leaf. All right, here we go. All right, so what I did on that shot, I wanted to focus on a foreground element. And I couldn't get focus because those little leaves, the stems on those leaves are really thin. So I pointed down at the ground, focus on a blade of grass, holding the back button autofocus, came back up, and then did my little sweep, if that's what you want to call it. And then right before I got to the pieces of wood, the tree stumps, whatever you want to call them, I let off that back button autofocus. But let's get another one here. different angle. And this is kind of nice too, shooting in the sunlight like this, you kind of get some pretty cool looking lens flares. Ooh, that's nice. All right, for the sake of the video, that'll be good enough. I think that's gonna work. Let's get a second shot, which actually I think this will work over here, so let me turn the camera around. All right, second shot here, we're gonna shoot, I don't know what these things are, but we're just gonna kind of skim. The idea with this shot, we're just gonna kind of skim the top of this with the sunlight coming down on that. So we'll be, can you guys see me? 24 millimeters, establishment shot. Got a little sidewalk here or bike path, shooting into the sun. And it's important to have, if you notice how low I am, it's important to get the foreground elements in here, add some depth to your video. All right, now we're gonna zoom in at 105. Let's see, what do I want to focus on in the background? And here you'll actually see the compression that I'm talking about, the nice blurry background with this lens. Remember, it's the lens doing the compression, it's not the actual camera. Oh, let's get this, bam. I think that's good enough. All right, let's go drive around. I think you guys get the point. I'm just gonna put the camera away. Let's drive around the park and let's see what we can get. We'll get the footage uploaded to the computer and I'll put all that stuff together. All right, one last thing. You guys probably saw the video I just recently did about audio recorders. I'm gonna set this up and get about 30 seconds of ambient sounds put over the video.
Okay, cool. I actually have all of the clips that we shot with the Canon RP from the other day imported into Adobe Premiere. Let's go ahead and just click on a clip here that we can use here. So this is at where I start moving over. Put an end point right there, shaky footage, and then bam. So put it in and out. Let's watch it in the timeline. Okay, let's actually slow all our footage down. So what I did, I just came in here, Control A to select all my clips. I'm gonna right click on a clip, modify interpret footage. I'm gonna go assume this frame rate at 24 frames per second. And now our footage should be slow motion, let's see. All right, let's do another one. Let me Control Z. Let me go back here. All right, now we're back at 24 frames per second. Let me find a good focus pull. I think this is it. Here we go. From here to about there. Not bad. Let me slow this down. All right, let's find that spot. Endpoint. Out point. Drag the clip down here. All right, let's take a look at it. And that is why we shoot in 60 frames per second, because when we slow that footage down, it's just naturally gonna smooth out that footage and give you those. You see, we still got a little shake here. What we can do is we'll throw that warp stabilizer on the clip. Stabilizing. Let's render our little clip here. Without warp stabilizer. With warp stabilizer. There it is. That's it. So to recap here, we imported all of our clips into Adobe Premiere. I press Control A or Command A for Mac users. Right click on a clip. We go down to modify, interpret footage. Assume this frame rate, set that to 24, and that'll slow it down for you. And then you just kind of go through the clips. Typically the beginning of your clip and the end of the clip will be your most shaky footage. So you kind of got to scrub through these clips and find the smoothest part of the clip. But that's it. That's how we do it in post. Thanks.
Global climate is one of the many stories knocked off the front pages by this pandemic, but even as the world economy stalls, it's still there.
Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. The United Nations provides a unique platform that can unite the whole world. And as the Paris Agreement proved, together we can make real change.